When Quest started, we didn't have a penny. We literally put all our money into it. And we thought, if this fails, I have to sell the house. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Sheroic podcast. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Cassey.
And today we're talking about women and startups.
Yes,
So
finally.
we get asked a lot of questions, especially about how we started the companies that we've, been a part of, that we've run. And these days, women just in business in general are becoming a lot more out there, I think, in the public.
I love that.
I know.
I really like that. I always get sad when I look at those Forbes top 100 richest people or whatever, and there's hardly any women on there, and I don't really know why. But now I'm seeing a lot more female CEOs, and it makes me so happy.
I know. I think it becomes more acceptable, which I think then makes it easier for women to not have to overcome being a woman in the business.
Right.
So I actually, in fact, speaking of Forbes, they did that top 100 women or top 100 CEOs.
Yeah.
And this was a few years back now, and there was a photo of a woman on the front. And for about 6 months, I had that pinned on my wall at work at Quest.
Oh.
Yeah, as motivation.
Yeah, because we just need to see more of it.
Yeah.
Well,
we've pulled some quotes and some statistics based on women, entrepreneurs and startups. And I just found these really fascinating. We were kind of just talking about it.
Let's hear it.
And then we literally were like, we've got to stop talking because we've got to start rolling and have it on record. So right now, according to CNBC reports, women make up 40% of entrepreneurs in the United States, which is the highest since 1996. Which I didn't realize it was 40%.
You know what? I wonder if it's because of Etsy businesses. Because women, or a lot of women, are very creative and crafty. And I feel like Etsy has been a really nurturing place for people to take small risks and see if people like their artwork and will buy it. Because that's total entrepreneurship right there.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, maybe that's part of it.
That's so interesting. So you think a lot of the things that are accessible to us now, like the internet, social media, all of that has actually allowed women to do more startups?
I think so. And I also think sometimes maybe when a woman has a child and she's at home and she can't go to work, but there's brief times throughout the day that she can do something. I've heard of women starting businesses during that time too, and starting these mommy businesses and whatever. And plus, you're going through a new period in your life. Maybe you have some inventions and ideas, and you create stuff and see if other mommies like it too. And I'm just purely speculating. I don't know, but I think that might be a small chunk of why.
That never occurred to me, but I think that's really interesting and probably true because I think we'll get into a couple of questions that fans have submitted. But starting a business once upon a time, I think was such a massive endeavor. But now, like you said, you can kind of do it on the side as when you're a mom, dip your toes in the water, see if you like it, and then see if it then takes off without making a major commitment.
Exactly, because now you don't need to pay $2,000 or $3,000 of rent every month for a brick and mortar store. If you want to sell something, literally make the thing, take a picture of it. We have phones, right? Most of us iPhones or Androids or something. And then put it on Etsy and let's just see if anyone wants to buy it. And for the most part, because I used to be on Etsy too, I don't think you pay to start the store, but you do pay a percentage of if you sell it.
Right.
So the risk really isn't there unless you're scared of people not liking your work. But that's okay too, because you can just delete the product and put something else up. So I think Etsy and stores like that are so good for people to just try their ideas.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Because when I saw 40%, I was like, wow, it's that high?
Yeah, that's really high.
Yeah.
But I also wonder what percentage of them fall under what type of revenue. You know what I mean? Are the 40% of them are 60% between 500,000 to $1 million a year or whatever? I'm also curious compared to men.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't have that stat in front of me, but that is actually an interesting one. Also, in 2015, female entrepreneurship increased by 10% compared with male entrepreneurship, which increased only 5%.
That's cool.
So the fact that women are getting more like, I think, confident to go
Yeah.
out and try it. Like the increase is incredible. And I really think that's really a big thing of why we started this podcast,
Yes.
right? Is that now's the time. Like I feel the energy. I feel like momentum going with like women in business or just women like stepping out of their comfort zone and doing things that once upon a time people never would have thought of.
Yep. I feel that energy too, absolutely. And everybody wanting to uplift each other, at least
Yeah.
the women that I know. And I get so happy hearing these stats. I feel like we're not alone, and it's okay to go ahead and try this. And back then, it wasn't womanly to be a CEO or whatever. Maybe you'd want to be like the pretty secretary. And I'm talking maybe like 50 years ago or something like that. But now the dreams are different, and I love that. It's so empowering.
Yeah, I actually love watching like old TV shows and movies that kind of represent women back then. So like, if you've seen Mad Men,
I haven't, but I really want to see it.
so like that is so fascinating because it's such a male-dominated world of, and if people who out there don't know what Mad Men is, it's based on the advertisement industry on Madison Avenue back in the 50s, and then I think it transitions into the 60s, and it's literally like, yeah, the women were secretaries. That was it. And so it's really interesting to see like that was true, and the change now, and then in seeing these stats, like it's really moving in like just an incredibly awesome direction. Because I think as long as you can bring value and you can develop something that can bring value to other people, like why should it matter if you're a man or a woman?
It shouldn't.
No.
It shouldn't.
So, okay, I've got a bunch of stats, but I want to move on to talking some like juicy, interesting stories that we've been through.
We like those juices.
We do, with the juices, we do. So one of the questions we had, and we've actually found that a lot of these are kind of based around the same theme, is fear, right? So Ashley Booth writes in and says, how do you break through your fear and find the motivation to make that very first step on the road? I feel if I could break that initial barrier, I could find success. And you hear this so often with women, right? Like, I'm scared. I'm not sure how to do that first step. Like, so start us off. Like, did you feel that? What was did you have the fear going into it, or were you like just completely oblivious to?
I don't think I was oblivious to the fear. I just weighed my fears. I feared either not being happy for the rest of my life, or I could fear jumping into this new project. And I did not want to risk not being happy for the rest of my life. And so the risk I needed to take to see if, for example, quitting my job and starting my yoga bag business was really, it was just the next step that I needed to take. And luckily with the internet, I remember we took, or Sam and I, like way back then, we took pictures of the yoga bag. Like, okay, this is, we brought the bag into the street because there was good lighting.
Okay.
We put a white sheet like on someone's gate, and then we put it onto the sidewalk. So we created that nice like psych feeling, so that there's no like hard edge behind it. And then it was under a shady tree, so light was very even. We put the yoga bag there, and we started shooting with like a regular digital camera or something like that. And that's how we shot our first product. And then I taught myself how to like, shade out weird shadows and stuff. I didn't even know Photoshop. I was probably using like, some random weird free program on the internet. And that was the first yoga bag picture that we put online. And I still remember the very first customer that we had. Maybe I mentioned this before. Sometimes I repeat myself, but it's crazy that you do these things so amateurly, I suppose. But other people, if you come off as confident, people will believe that you're confident and believe in your product too. I mean, I believed in my product. Yeah. And so now I'm like totally off on a different tangent.
No, so I really love that. And let's take us back a few steps. So you're working, you've got like what, a 9-to-5 job?
Yeah.
Okay, doing what?
I was trained to be a fashion buyer.
Okay.
Super corporate. There were like 4,000 people in the building. I was in a cubicle.
Okay, so then you go into, then you want to make bags. Like, was that like, I really want to do this because you were miserable in your job, or you just always had that drive?
So the bag, I actually started in college. So I started the bags before I got into my first job.
Okay.
And so I've always had side businesses going on like my entire life, beginning in like 7th grade. I've always had something going on.
Do you like make cookies or something?
I made cookies. I sold cookies. I sold corsages. I sold Harvard business cases, which I think were probably illegal to do. Well, okay, so here's what it is. Yeah. In college, for whatever reason, in marketing class, they had us buy these Harvard business cases so that we could read and then discuss the next day in class.
Okay.
And each person had to buy a digital copy. And I was like, that's weird. I forget how much it was, but it was like either, $20, $40, $50 or something. And I thought, well, if I just get the digital copy, why don't I just print out a bunch and sell it to my classmates? And that's literally what I did. I was like, hey guys, like, don't buy it. I'll buy it and I'll sell it to you. And I made a profit off of that.
Nice.
Yeah. And obviously probably super illegal to take someone else's work and redistribute that information. But hey, whatever.
That's entrepreneurship at its finest.
Entrepreneurship.
And how many lessons did you learn by doing that Harvard?
Oh, how many? I learned more selling the cases than reading the Harvard business cases.
Yeah, right? Like, it's the difference between like being like keeping your head in the book and actually putting things to practice.
Exactly.
All right, so take us. So you got this bag. Because I'm super fascinated because I think that's what some people get so stuck on, right? Yeah. They've got a job. You always loved fashion. So the fact that you've got this job as a fashion buyer in this company, like on the outside, that would seem like a dream come true. And
I thought it was.
So from that, what then made you take the next steps into doing your bag? Because here's what I'm thinking. If we can dissect it, right, find like the core steps that you did or the mental shifts that you made, I think it could really benefit people that are trying to make that shift from a job to their own business.
Okay, so for me, I guess you could look at it two ways. Someone could look at it as you left everything and you risked it all. But I saw a sign, like the song. Remember that song?
What song is it? I saw a sign. Yes.
And I opened up my eyes, I saw the sign. Okay, so I saw the sign and I had sent these yoga bags out to a very select number of magazines, maybe like Shape Magazine, Fitness Magazine, and like Women's Health or something like that. And every bag was like gold to me because we didn't have a bunch to ship out just for fun. Like sending one bag out and not knowing if anyone was going to do anything with it was going to be against my profit margin. You know what I mean?
So you would lose money.
I would lose money. Basically, that's what I said. I took a chance. And so one of the magazines, Shape Magazine, printed the yoga bag in their magazine, and that was the sign. That was a sign that somebody noticed what I was doing as a tiny person, doing this by myself, trying to be all legit. And I said, they think I'm legit. Now I'm going to jump and go into this full force. And so that's when I quit my job. And then I bought a ticket to China on Friday and flew there on Sunday to find a manufacturer at the Canton Fair. And so...
Whoa, time out. You cannot skim past that. That is so impressive. So... have you taken the photo at this point on the white sheet?
Yes.
Okay, so you've taken the photo on the white sheet. Magazine prints your thing. You quit your job in how long period from the time you saw it in the magazine?
Maybe within the next 2 weeks, just to be courteous.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so you gave 2 weeks notice. You quit your job,
and
then you literally like. What makes you then go book a ticket to go to China? Like, what is?
Well, like, I no longer have a job. I don't have restrictions. I have a dream, and so. Why not chase the dream?
Right.
Like, I'm not going to just think about it and wait for it to happen. And if it's in the magazine, orders are coming in, I need to go big. And so that's why I did that. And so I decided to take that risk on myself. But I always was teaching Pilates on the side. And so at least I had like mini amounts of income. Right. And during this period, after I got back from China, I went from teaching Pilates 2 times a week to teaching 12 times a week to make ends meet. So there was always something to make sure I would have food and be able to pay rent. But I went full on hard for my dream because there's no other way to know if you're going to succeed if you don't give it everything you've got.
Right. Yeah, and that's really important because a lot of people think like either it was easy for you, right? Or you were born into money or things like that. Or they think, okay, I have to let go of everything that I do and know and jump, head first. And I don't think it's that easy. I don't think it's as black and white as that. And I think that it's very important to discuss it and figure out like what are the truths on making those steps to overcome your fear, but not just give up your life and risk everything. Because I think that's important, right? You don't want to risk everything.
You don't want to risk everything. And also when you're a little bit older and you are paying your own rent and maybe you're even feeding kids or something like that, like think about that, but you'd still take the risk. Just make it a smart risk.
Right. Yeah. And because that's the thing. thing with fear. Like, it's very possible you're going to fail. And it's the fear that's like, oh, I don't want to fail. So that stops them.
Yeah.
I think if you just say, there's a huge possibility I'm going to fail, but not doing it, like you said, isn't going to get you there. So like, for instance, with me,
let's talk about that.
Tom worked at a technology company, he met his two business partners, they owned the company, and for like 8 years he was miserable. And during that period, I was actually a stay-at-home wife. We called it the Bilyeu Enterprises because, like, he didn't have to do anything. I did all the bills. I figured out the house. I figured out, like, the food, like, everything. If he wasn't dealing with work, he didn't have to do anything else. So I dealt with everything. But I was definitely a stay-at-home housewife in essence. I kept myself busy working out, but And then he came home one day and he's like, I'm so miserable. I want to quit my job and I want to do something that I'm passionate about. Now, as the wife, I was like, absolutely. Like, I think happiness, like you had said, like, it's so important that being handcuffed to anything doesn't make sense. That if you feel like they're handcuffs.
You actually commented on my Instagram the other day and you said, do you remember?
Yeah, it was handcuffs. A paycheck is a handcuffs to your soul.
Yes.
It was funny because I didn't even think about it. I just typed and I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And then you text me, you're like, Lisa, that's pretty good.
That's really good. We need to make a quote out of it.
And really what I mean is that I think paychecks are important. You have to pay your way. You have to feed yourself and you have to have a roof over your shoulder. But being tied to a certain number because you don't want to go backwards is literally handcuffs on the soul. And so when my husband said this is, making me miserable, I didn't bat an eye. Let's change our path. So when Quest started, we didn't have a penny. We literally put all our money into it. Tom's business partners put their money into it. And we thought, if this fails, I have to sell the house. I've just bought a house literally 2 months ago.
Wow.
And the woman, you want to nest. You're so excited.
Yeah.
You've just done the paint job. You've bought new furniture. Decorated everything. And within 2 months, he's literally saying, if Quest doesn't work, we lose everything. And I was like, let's do it. Because I weighed my options. I thought, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Like, in the whole scheme of life, what are the worst things that can happen to me? Not being able to feed myself and not having a roof over my head. Well, I know that I'm always going to find food, right? I've got a family. I know I can always lean on them. And the same with the roof. Like, I will stay in a motel if I have to, but I'm never going to be on the streets. So to me, if those are the two biggest things I fear in life, and I know that that's not going to happen, why hold on to material things? So I said, cool, let's just do it. Now, we went into it in a very strategic way. We looked at the money that he was bringing in from his tech company, how much money. We literally cut that paycheck, I think it was into a third. So we were living off his full paycheck, and then we said, what does life look like if we're now just taking in a third? Because he had committed 2 days a week to the company still.
Okay.
And then the rest was building Quest.
I got it.
So, okay, well, I can't live the same life I live now. And it's not like I was living a, super over-the-top life, but we were like, okay, what are the things we have to cut? Cable, who cares? I've got a laptop. I can watch YouTube videos. I don't need cable. We're spending a certain amount of money every week on food. Okay, well, what are the things that we actually need and what are the things that are pleasure? Starbucks. You don't need Starbucks. I can buy filtered coffee. I can make it from home. I can pour hot water into it, and there's my coffee. So cut that out. And literally just go through every tiny little thing and just cut out all the things that you don't have to. And so we were able to then live off that third of his pay and then build Quest. But making sure that you're not just giving your life up and saying, well, it will figure itself out, right? Like what with you did. You made sure that, okay, I have to do more lessons. I have to teach more because I really want to go after this, but I'm not going to end up on the street.
Exactly. Yeah. That's really important.
So
I think that's a very realistic answer, because a lot of times when you see these inspirational talks or quotes, it's like, go hard. And yes, 100% go hard, but just have a little bit of a cushion for yourself,
right?
Just in case, because failure is bound to happen.
Right.
And how you'll be able to bounce back up is how much you are prepared for that too. Yeah,
and that's the thing. I think being prepared, because don't go into anything blindsided. So with Ashley, when she says, she thinks that she could really be successful if she broke through that barrier, it's like, embrace the fear. It's everybody faces fear, right? Even the most successful people in this universe at one point or another has the fear. They just don't let it stop them.
You just have to deal with the fear. That's
Yeah.
all. The fear is always going to be
Exactly.
there. And also, I think the barrier can be bigger or smaller depending on how you look at it and your perspective. And so, for example, if the fear is like, well, I don't know how to set up a store and like I don't know technology, then well, there's things like Squarespace or whatever, like these easy out of the box templates where you can just set up a website and just do it. I think it's easier than ever to set up a business, especially if it's going to be on digital or on the internet. So,
yeah, I mean, even that, like when you were saying back where you were doing photography for your bag,
Yeah.
there wasn't like there was a bunch of YouTube videos out there on how to do photography. So how do you discover those things? So let's take, you've got somebody at home that really wants to do something like, oh my God, I want to be a photographer and I have a camera and I really like my photography, but I don't know how to start. I think that's the key thing for people, the start.
I think the start is finding a role model or someone that you like what they're doing and trying to emulate what they do. And also because there is Google and YouTube, you can literally learn anything you want to on the internet. So that's where I would start, by educating yourself so that it doesn't become as scary, because things are less scary when you know about it, right? Like say you go into a haunted house, but you know there's going to be a zombie on the right-hand side, then you kind of, I mean, I'll still die and be absolutely scared, but at least if I know it, I won't be as scared if I had zero idea.
Right.
It's kind of the same idea.
Yeah. And I think baby steps, right? Like like you were even saying about a brick and mortar, like it doesn't have to be like that anymore. You've got the internet, you can do the small little steps instead of jumping into like, oh my God, I don't have enough money to rent a space and then put a store sign up and things like that. Like just, you know, do those small little baby steps and see if your product's going to sell first before you commit.
For sure. So this is a very real scenario. I've wanted to show Popflex, my activewear line, at a trade show.
Okay.
But the cost of a booth at a trade show is extremely expensive. And Lisa, you know, you guys have had huge booths at like Idea Fit Expo and things like that. And so a booth, I believe, at like the Active Collective or Magic is I don't know, anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000 just for a couple of days, which is basically like rent for a brick and mortar store, like for a month.
Right.
So you're putting in a lot of money, and I just haven't been able to justify that just yet to go to a trade show, because I think a couple of reasons. I want to make sure that I'll be able to make up for that money through the orders that I'm going to get in. Also, with the power of the internet, I'm selling a lot, like direct to consumer, cutting out all those fees and all that stuff. And I get to hear from my consumers directly because they're fans. And so I do like that online aspect. You can set up a store, sell something. But on the back end of it all, we're still working on perfecting the fit and making sure it's perfect. And so I don't really want to go to a trade show until I know that my stuff is like 100% perfect. And I think the stuff we have now is good, but I think it could always be better too.
Then if you think it can always be better, at what point do you go, you know what, Cassey, you got to stop trying to reach 100%? Like 99.9% is good enough. Go to the trade show and start selling.
Yeah, I think for me inside, I know when that is, and I think it's going to be next year.
Because you've got your own like mental guidelines of...
Well, not even a mental guideline. Like I know, like when I'll know when I see the pants on and I see them in my body and it's doing exactly what I want it to do. Like there's pants that can be, they're good, they're okay, they're amazing, or they're like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Like, and I don't want to go to a trade show until they're like, oh my God, this is ridiculous.
Right. Because you want to be able to speak with the confidence that you're feeling.
Yeah.
And I know authenticity is a big thing for you and also your
and you
fans.
know, the fashion space is not something that I went to school for, and you know, even if you don't go to school for it, well, even if you go to school for it, it doesn't mean that you're going to be the best at what you do either.
Right.
It's just like mostly textbook education. And so I'm still learning all the time, and I do see products at trade shows or even products that people send me for activewear, and I see their mistakes and I see the seams are off or the sizing's wrong, and like my product, I think, is on a higher quality level than a lot of stuff that's already out there. But I think for myself to feel comfortable to go to a trade show, I want to make sure that I'm like near the top, like very close to the
Right.
top. So I don't know, that's my own thing. I could go to the trade show anytime I want. I just
Yeah.
don't feel comfortable yet.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that when you're doing a business that's value add, it's a lot more, I think, encouraging, at least from the selling perspective. Like, you know, you get these like really cheesy salesmen that try and lie as much. You know, the car dealerships is like a big thing where like they'll try and squeeze every penny out of you. And I couldn't do that with a good, you know, healthy conscience. But I think that when you're selling something you really believe in, even if you don't get sales immediately, I think that passion for really believing that this could bring value to people actually helps. You know, like with Quest Bars, one of the first events that we ever did, we had like a 6-foot table. And it literally was a bunch of us, the wives, the husbands. We pulled a couple of our friends in and we had a tablecloth, old laptops, and we were like carnival barking in the aisles, like free Quest Bar, free Quest Bar. And people looked at us like we were nuts. Like literally, like you're given a whole protein, because especially at that time, no one did that. It was like you get a little nibble of the, you know, trial of the bar. We were given the whole bar. So of course, immediately people are skeptical. Hang on a minute, you're giving out a free protein bar?
What do you want?
What do you want? Exactly. But we knew that we were bringing value with the product we were selling. And so that alone is so encouraging to not give up. And so I think that it's really important with any startup, believe in what you're actually doing.
Yes.
Don't do it for the money. Don't do it for the fame, right? Like even if your entrepreneurship is a YouTube channel, right? Like it is important that you're bringing value to the people watching. At least that's my perspective.
I 110% agree with you. You have to believe in your product, and that otherwise, what are you standing behind?
Right.
You can't just sell people fluff because they're not going to come back. It has to work.
Yeah.
And so it's so funny that you talked about that first Quest like table, because I remember Sam and I used to travel around to different equinoxes and set up one of those like Costco tables, right? And we just like stick our bags on top, and I would stay there all day from like 8 a.m. to like 6 p.m. and like watch as people walk by and be like, hi, like, would you like to look at these yoga bags? They're really good. And oh, okay. Yeah. Like, and they walk by and you just, I mean, you go through all of that. You take those baby steps. You do those things. Then you really learn to know your product and know what people want to. I think it's good to be out there and doing that kind of stuff. And like, if you're afraid to start, I mean, start by showing your friends and family, right? And then start by going to the farmer's market. If you're selling some nut butters or something like that, like start there and then slowly go. But it's not like you have to jump in and like pay $5,000 for a trade show like tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. It's little by little, so it's not as scary.
Yeah, that's really true. And what we initially did at Quest was we were giving out the bars for free to anybody and everybody for like the first 3 months. We weren't concentrating on sales. It was value add, give it to people. And we literally said, and this is back when social media wasn't big, like Facebook was only really for like people to connect with their school friends.
Right.
It was like, here's a free protein bar. If you really believe in it, talk about it. If you don't believe in it, talk about it. Like if you hate it, speak up.
Yeah.
Because we want to know, right? Like if it doesn't taste good or if it's like whatever the situation may be, like we want to know, because the outside audience will tell you whether you've got something good or not.
Yes.
So, you know, you hear all the time was like, oh my God, this isn't selling. Like I've been trying to sell it for 3 years and I'm not sure why. It's like, take a look at what you're actually selling or what you're actually doing, because at some point the crowd will speak.
And they are speaking. Maybe you're not listening.
Right.
Yeah. And so I remember when we first released our clothing, we went size 2 through 12, which is very standard for most fashion businesses. And then we started hearing very vocal people wanting the plus size. And so we were only like, 3 months into releasing our new collection. And right when I heard that, I said, all right, we're going plus size. We're adding 14 and 16 immediately because that's what they want. And then once we did that, the people were very happy. And now we're concentrating more on like, what colors do you want? Like the more of the fun stuff. But like, you really have to listen to your audience. I mean, they are the ones buying the stuff. They're helping you pay the bills. So you owe it to them to listen to what they want.
Yeah. And in fact, you fairly recently, like maybe a week ago or so, posted an image of 3 designs that you had done.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I was like, that is genius. You're asking people, right, before you're investing in fabrics and fits and shapes and seams and all of this, before you're investing a ton of time, money and energy into it, you're doing these designs and you're getting feedback. and you're finding out, do these actually work? Like, that's so genius. Like, find out what people want even before you put a penny to it.
And they become a part of the process. You know what's really funny about that picture? It was supposed to be a joke picture.
Oh, really?
Okay, so like I did 2 designs
That's
that were
hilarious.
like really cool and hot, and I loved it. Then I drew a PE outfit.
Is that the one that I chose?
Maybe, because I started seeing the comments come in. I was like, oh, everyone's gonna put like emoji faces with the cries on the cry tears on the side because it's gonna be funny. And some people were like, you know, I really like how modest the one on the right is. And then there were more, and I was like, oh, okay, so maybe I tapped into something that I didn't even know. So maybe we'll start designing more modest clothing. Like, it's not going to look like a PE outfit, but that was something new. I didn't realize that people didn't think that was a joke.
But isn't that awesome? Like, mistakes can actually do well.
I love that too. I love when life surprises me like that.
Yeah, that
beautiful.
actually reminds me of, so we're back in the early days at Quest, and each batch was like $5,000 to make, and that was every penny we had, right? So it's like we had to make sure we got every bar we possibly could out of like the mixture. And it was so like expensive to make because, you know, like I said, every penny goes into it. You're thinking, oh my God, is this the batch that if it doesn't do well, I'm gonna lose my house, right? Like, and plus you got business partners, so you feel very obligated to each other to make sure that you do your best. So we do. It was to the point where we had just enough staff to make the bars without us being right there. So we're in the offices. I'm doing shipping, and one of the guys comes in, and he turns to Tom and he's like, there's a big mistake. And we're like, what? And they're like, we just ran a batch and we put the wrong flavorings in. So they were making a berry bar.
Okay.
They were making the berry bar and they accidentally put the peanut butter flavoring in. And they're like, we grabbed the wrong tub of flavorings and the batch is ruined because obviously like you have to like, you can't say it's one flavor and it not be. So Tom's like, oh my God, what do I do? So he goes and he tastes it and he's like, and everyone starts trying it. They're like, it kind of tastes like peanut butter and jelly. And that's where the peanut butter and jelly Quest bar was invented.
Smiling, I was like, I know what this is gonna be.
But what we did is, we didn't have the wrappers because we literally just made it up on the spot. So we wrapped them in blanks. We put the nutritional value on them, and we said, guys, we're trying a prototype. What do you guys think? People loved it. It freaked out. So we're like, cool, I guess we'll make it. So now you invest money in the wrapper, the design, the boxes, everything. And then we ended up, and for a while, that was one of our most popular selling bars. And it was purely by accident.
I love that so much because not only is it an accident, but people felt involved in creating, in the creation process. It's genius.
Because we literally said, if you guys like this, let us know because then we'll put it into production. And so having that constant fan feedback and not being afraid to, look, you have to be open to negativity because everyone may turn around and go, this is terrible. Cool, well then drop it. Don't commit so much, all your eggs in one basket. But we tested it, people loved it, so then we proceeded, and same with this clothing. Who knows, that may be like your next big seller.
Yes, I'm going to sell to high schools and middle schools.
Nice. Very fashionable high schools and middle schools.
Yes, very fashionable. And I love that the wrapper that you put it in was a blank with like a sticker or something on top because that brings that rawness into it. I think that's just, there's something just so beautiful about being part of the mistake process and turning it to something. I'm like almost tearing up now because I just feel so much for that.
Cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's cool.
And bless her, you are tearing up.
This is so weird. Why am I crying?
You said though recently that your happiness is bringing you to tears.
Oh my gosh, I'm really happy. That's what it means.
But that's
crazy,
amazing.
Right? No, I cry more now when I'm happy than when I'm sad, which I think is a great thing. But it's when I cry, it means I'm really happy for you.
And this is one thing that like it blew my mind. Like you are such a emotional person. You're in touch with your emotions, but you're so business savvy, and that's what I love. Especially even doing this podcast, like being able to talk about it. Like we're literally talking about women startups, business, making money, entrepreneurship, and you're still able to be like super emotional. Like that's so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, I'm trying to embrace my tears. But I just think I guess it's a good way to show you that I really, because the tears aren't something that I can control. Right. I just can't. They just come out. Kind of like when you have a good belly laugh and you just like cannot. The same thing with my tears. And so when I heard that story, even though it has nothing to do with like orphans or whatever, like just hearing that little bar and that it became this flavor that I actually do really enjoy. That's just a beautiful story.
Aw, thank
we
you.
should just make like little film shorts about beautiful entrepreneurship stories.
The funny thing is, it's one of those stories as well that I haven't thought about in ages. In a long time. Yeah, I haven't thought about it.
Oh, I love that story so much.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I love that story. I feel like the PB&J has a little life.
It does.
Oh, I like that. That's a cute story.
But in talking about startups and the fear and failure and all of that, like, have you had businesses that people may not have even heard about that you started, failed? What did you learn from it? Like, because like I said, I think a lot of people listening, they're either going through failures of their own business or so afraid that they're going to fail that they think their world's going to come apart. And the truth is your world will not come apart. So how do we take those lessons? What lessons can you learn from failed companies?
Oh, yes. Two come to mind. One time we tried to start basically like a Facebook for fitness, but starting with the Blogilates community. It was called my.blogilates or something like that, kind of like MySpace. And we poured so much money into that thing. I think it was like anywhere between $50,000 or $100,000 or something like that, because I thought this was going to be like the next big thing. And this is all self-funded, organic. I've never taken loans or investors or anything like that. And so this was our own hard work and money. And the problem was people loved it. There were so many people on it that the site could not function. And so we tried so hard. We poured even more money into the servers and everything to try to the site was beautiful. It's just that every time you clicked on something, it took like 6 seconds for it to load. And in internet time, things better be popping up like instantly or in like half a second. And we tried and we tried and we went through like a series of different developers. And one day I just realized, you know what, we're pouring in too much. Because on top of that, like $100K investment, every month we had to pay thousands of dollars just to keep the site running. And this site didn't even have ads. It did not have a way to make money yet. And so I forget after how long, maybe it was several months or something, I was just like, we're just going to have to pull this. And people are going to be really upset, but like, I cannot figure out how to make this work. And so we killed that site.
How do you make that decision? Because that's one thing that I think a lot of people struggle with is if anyone plays cards out there, the pot committed quote, the phrase. So basically you've put so much money into your set of cards that you feel like, oh my God, now I'm pot committed. But so you keep pouring more money into it because you're like, well, I've already put 50,000 in. I definitely should invest another 5. Well, I've put 55,000. God, what's another 5? And the problem is you just keep going. So how do you make that conscious decision to say, you know what, I'm not going to dwell. I'm not going to lick my wounds. I'm not going to like sit here and say, woe is me. I have to make a decision. Like I can't just keep being not even egotistical, but like this has to work. This has to work. Because I think that's also another thing that people find problems with. Like, oh my God, if I back out now, people are going to say, I told you so, or see, I knew it wasn't going to work. Like, so did you have to make like do you think through that? Yeah.
Well, I think, of course, first you say, I have to make it work. I'm going to keep trying. And the trying was for the several months. And then at some point you're like, if I could code this myself, I'm sure I could figure it out. But we had already spent so much money on paying different developers to figure it out. And maybe we just needed a super server or something. And I was like, you know what? I don't think this is the business I want to be in anymore. And so we just ended it and put our energy into something else. And you know what? I'm never going to do something that is not going to be good. And I'm not going to leave it there for my pride. Because if it's not a good product, I can't stand behind it. So that was just, you know, unfortunately, technology and that sort of stuff, development, that's not an area that I'm strong in. And so I just decided, that's not going to be our thing.
Did you have like multiple discussions with Sam about
definitely. And at some point, we were just like, this is not worth it. It's not worth our time. It's not worth our money. We don't even know what these developers are talking about. And we just didn't feel like we were being led in the right direction. And, you know, maybe looking back, if we had more money or something, we could have hired someone different who knew something else. But you know what? I'm cool with it not working out because what I'm doing today is what I really love too. And so it's fine.
And you think in having not done that, it's allowed you to do other things now.
Yeah. And so let me bring you to my second story real quick. Sorry, I didn't want to take up too much time because I want to
No, I love
too.
these stories.
Okay.
No. Because like I said, there's so many lessons to be learned. There's so many things of why things can fail, and then how you handle it. To me, it's not about the failure itself. It's about how you handle it, how you deal with it, and how you pick yourself up and move on.
Yeah. So a failure that turned into something beautiful was actually my first activewear line, Body Pop. So you went to the launch party.
I did.
That was when we created a music video with Sydney Olsen, who was in that. So it's all very connected. And I wanted to create a beautiful activewear line that was basically head-to-head with Lululemon. And, you know, Lulu is like top of the game.
Yeah.
And so that means I want same quality, pretty much like similar price point and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, when we released it, the hugest backlash that we got was, this is so expensive. What are you thinking? And I can't afford this. You're leaving your fans behind. Like, you don't appreciate that we've been here for you this entire time, and now you release this activewear collection that we can't even afford. Like, how dare you? And so those were the kinds of comments I was getting on day one of launch, which was like, it was like the birthday of Body Pop, and I was supposed to be so happy. But I remember leaning against my bed and like just crying because I was like, how did I completely miss this? Like, and then, you know, you get all defensive and you're like, well, they don't understand. But then you have to realize, this is my audience. They're my babies. I got to take care of them. And so even though Body Pop did sell well, I decided to completely rebrand and change it so that we could have even better quality and half the pricing.
How did you figure that out?
So we had to cut out the middleman. And so we spent a couple years sourcing every single thread, every single fabric. And so you're not just working through somebody who's going to say, oh, for example, like if I sketch something and I give it to the factory, they're like, okay, cool, we'll take care of it and we'll come back to you in 3 weeks and show you the design. This time we're telling them, we're going to buy the thread, we're going to buy the fabric, we're going to digitally print everything, we're going to dye everything. So we basically knew where everything was coming from so that we would just give it to the factory to put together. So there was no like extra cushion cost on top of that. And so that's how we were able to bring down the price. And also the fact that I sell everything online, it makes it a lot easier too, so that you're not worrying too much about wholesale costs and things like that. And so when we released Popflex, it was a much different reaction than when we released Body Pop. And I think the mistake of Body Pop helped bring this like new beautiful brand that I'm just so proud of, because it's like, it's everything that I want it to be, but also better, because it's going to keep getting better.
That's so incredible. So like there's multiple things in what you just said that I found extremely powerful for the listeners at home and the viewers on YouTube. What's that? Is that, so you did something you were so passionate about, and like having gone to the launch and stuff, like you put a lot of time and energy into just the launch, let alone like the clothing line. I mean, you had a music video that you shot, it'd been edited, like you had a song, which by the way, I still listen to that song
so
when I work out. I do.
And I'm not a songwriter. Like these are all things that you just figure out.
I love
it.
I think it just reminds me of you, so I have like that like emotional connection.
So
but it's on my workout playlist. But you had a song, you had a music video, you created this clothing line, you did this massive launch party, like you thought of everything. And it was so impressive when I turned up at the launch and like what you'd put into it. Now thinking like from the outside, you've done all this work, you've put all this time and energy into this clothing line that you're super passionate about, you do all this for the launch, and then the very next day all you do is get criticized. You took your time to be upset, and you know, I think that that's sometimes very necessary, and I think that is very important, which we've said before, is know yourself. So if you need time to mourn, right, which is kind of like what it was, it was like a mourning period.
Right, I was like, getting murdered.
So like maybe it's important for you to go, I need this time to cry, I need this time to be emotional, I'm going to let it out. But then you didn't stay there, right? So many people in you know, in someone else in your shoes, would have mourned for months. They would have been dogmatic. They would have put their, you know, stake in the ground. This is my clothing line, and, you know, I know it's good, so people will like it. It wasn't that you didn't know it was good. It was great stuff, but you knew it wasn't what your audience were looking for. And so you didn't put that stake in the ground. You turned around and you're like, all right, so they want cheaper clothes, or you know, cost-effective clothes, and so how do I do that? In asking that question, it then led you to look at stitching, threads, all of this. That wasn't the easy solution.
Oh, no. It was hard. And even to this day, we're still trying to figure out the whole fashion thing, but I'm still working on the grading. And for people who don't know clothing and apparel design and stuff, grading is basically how the jump in inches between every single like shirt or pant, like, you know, from a 0 to a 2 to a 4, like how much do you grow?
Right.
And so fit is so important to every single clothing line. And a lot of brands go out of business because they can't stay consistent. And that's something that I know we have to work on. So that's why I want to make sure we get that perfect before we go to the trade show.
Right.
And so even to this day, I'm learning so much stuff that I never really wanted to be involved in. Like I've never taken a class in grading, but there are websites and whatever, and learning, and you invite fit models over, and if they don't fit, then you just gotta figure it out. At the end of the day, it's just math, and it's just a little bit of physics and how the body grows. And so I'm learning every single day how to make this work.
And you find the beauty in that learning, and so do I, right? Like, it's not like I don't know this, so you don't want to touch it. It's like, I don't know this. Oh my God, I could get more powerful. I could get more, like, I could learn a skill. I could learn a talent. Like, this is so exciting. What can I read up about? Right? Like, it's literally a perspective of that, you know, like the hole in your game or whatever. That, do you see the hole as a negative, or do you see there's a potential of being stronger, you know, mentally?
I think sometimes the thing that you don't want to do is the one thing that's going to change your game. And for me, like, I did not want to deal with like this fitting issue. But literally for the past like 7 days, I've been staying up to about 12:30 a.m. and just like figuring out these numbers. And this is after a whole long day of work. I go home and I'm like, all right, I'm going to take out the laptop. Like, we're going to work on this capri first and then this pant, because everything has its own life and it's so different. Honestly, I really do wish that one day somebody can invent clothing that would just mold to your body, so we wouldn't have to deal with all this stuff. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
I bet you one day it'll come out.
I bet you one day
And
it
I bet
will.
you that machine's going to be created by Cassey Ho.
And
In fact, that's your next challenge, woman.
Man, like if there were clothing that could just mold to your body and also change to the hottest color of the season, we'd actually cut down on waste and fabric waste and things like that.
But when you cut down on your sales as well, because now it just changes color.
No, absolutely. I'm just thinking for the world. So yeah,
that's very kind and generous.
Yeah,
of
no,
you.
but if I came up with this invention that could just create clothes and mold to your body, then I think that would make a lot of money. So whatever. Anyway,
awesome.
Totally off topic. That and teleportation would change the world.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. Okay, wait, but going to Quest bars, talk about like when you were actually creating, because you were on like the line creating this stuff and cooking.
Well, even like way before Quest, when I first met Tom, like we were both very ambitious and we both had like big dreams. So I went to film school. My big dream was I'm going to be the first female director to win an Academy Award.
Ooh.
So that was my very first goal. So I went to film school, came to America for film. That's how I met my husband. So we basically we started a photography business where we were doing headshots.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we used to have Bilyeu photography. I even have the t-shirt.
Oh my God. That's so funny.
Yeah, so literally on the weekends, because he worked at a film school, he put up flyers. And at the films, there was actors there. So it was like, hey, you want your headshot? We were charging them like $10 or something like that. So we were doing headshots.
Yeah.
I did photography behind the scenes on movie sets. So I was a set photographer. Thought this is amazing. I get to be in a big budget film. I get to learn, get all the experience. Like I'm going to start my own like photography on sets. I'm going to learn everything, take that money and make my own film.
Yeah.
After the second movie I worked on, I absolutely hated it because you had the director, the actors, the producers all literally just step on you like you're worthless. So I had the actress tell me I couldn't take photos of her. I tried to sneak photos because that was my job, to get the photos of on set. So I had to try and sneak photos. She spotted me again.
Wait, why wouldn't she let you take
Because
photos?
she said I was distracting. In the middle of the shoot. So she's like, I'm distracting.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I'll take it when they're doing rehearsing instead of when they're actually filming. She still didn't like it, so she told the director. So the director came up to me and was like, you can't take photos of her. Now, this is the main actress of this big budget
that's kind
movie.
of your job.
That's my job. So not giving up and not giving in, I was like, okay, how do I do this? So I'm literally like hiding behind sofas. I'm like got the camera like on my hip and just pressing the button, hoping that I'm like every possible thing I could possibly do. But they were just complaining. By the end of the day, the producer comes up to me and he's like, where on earth are my photos? Why don't you have photos of the actress? Why don't you have photos of behind the scenes? Now, I could sit there and make excuses, right? But I knew that like this was a situation where I didn't want to deal with divas. I didn't want to be in a work environment where people just weren't being kind to you. It wasn't a nice environment. So I said, my entire life has been like towards directing, and now here I am on movie sets and my entire dream is crushing. Like I don't want to be on film sets anymore. I don't want to be around people that are going to treat you like that. And it was a realization, and I thought I would rather not be in film than be in an environment like this. So how else can I be creative? So then we were like, okay, what else can I do that's creative? So I started website business where I was like designing websites, and I found coders that could code for me, and so it's just like, I think it's important to not be afraid to try things.
Yeah.
To go, I may have spent 5 years, like with you and your clothing, I may spend years doing this, my money, time, effort, but I'm not going to keep doing something if it's not working for me, if it's not working for my bigger vision. Like, I think it's very important to adapt and move and, you know, see what you're enjoying, see what you're not. And, you know, then with Quest, again, it was kind of like, okay, well, here's this company or here's this potential. I love the fitness industry. My husband loves the fitness industry. His business partners were in the fitness, you know, it just fitted in with everybody's passions.
Did it scare you that you didn't know anything about the food industry?
Well, the thing is, Tom's business partners and one of his wives were really into the fitness industry, like really hardcore. Like, so his wife, one of my husband's business partner's wives, comes from like fitness royalty. So like her dad is one of the only 3 people to ever be Arnold Schwarzenegger in a bodybuilding competition. So it wasn't like we were going in completely blindsided, but none of us knew how to actually make food and make it shelf sustainable. So it's about research, it's about looking into it, and that's, you know, what the business partners did, and everyone kind of found their niche. And so I started running our shipping side of it. I had no idea. I had no experience in shipping. I started on my rug at home, literally taking 3 boxes of orders to the post office.
I remember those post office days.
But literally lining up and handing them over, you know. And then I just kind of learned as we went along how to do shipping, how to build a warehouse, and how to get forklifts, and how to be certified, and what it means to have ingredients coming in. And I literally, instead of being paralyzed by fear, I just thought someone has to do it. We can't afford to pay someone to do it, so I guess I'll learn myself. And so I ran our shipping company up until we were exporting $80 million a month with product. Like, I had 40 people underneath me, forklift people. I mean, but I learned every step of the way. And I think that's so important in not being afraid to fall, learning from those mistakes. What is it that you need to learn to get to that next level, right? For you, it was, I need to get my clothes cheaper. Okay, so what do I need to learn to do that? Okay, I have to learn about stitching. Well, I have no idea about stitching. I don't know what thread, you know, what costs threads are. Okay, well, what is the standard price? Like, all these little things that I think if you can just switch your, going back to what we were saying earlier, if you can just switch your mindset to enjoy that process, I think that could be super enjoyable as part of the startup business.
I also think it's really beautiful when someone who's not so well versed in the industry wants to come in and kind of disrupt the industry, because you bring such a fresh perspective. And all those experiences that you talked about on set and feeling like, you know, you were just annoying people and you were like this, you know, person that no one wanted to deal with. You couldn't even do your job. It's so interesting because when one of the first times I filmed Cooking Clean with you guys at this house, I believe in like Beverly Hills or something like that, it was actually one of the funnest sets I had ever been on. Like, everyone was so happy.
That's so cool.
And that's just, I just remember from that moment and then getting to know more about Quest. Like, I wanted our company culture to be as vibrant as yours. I wanted our sets to be fun, and I wanted everyone to hug each other at the end of a shoot, because you just created something beautiful together, instead of like, okay, bye, like rushing home and like, you know, taking all your bags away. And so I think maybe the experiences that you had on those negative sets helped you create such beautiful sets where people actually got along.
And I think that's really important, right? Like, and that's actually one thing I'd love to dive into in another episode about what it's like being, I guess, an employee versus a boss. Like, I think that there's a big lessons to be learned, like having, you know, going through that process.
Yeah.
But I think it's important, right? Like, looking at your environment and seeing, like, if you're doing a startup, like, what are the things you really want it to embody, right? If you want it to be a place where people love coming to, or people turn to your company as a support system, like, what are those attributes that are important to you, and remember those and use that almost as a guideline when you're doing your startup, right? Like, I want this to be a place where people can talk about their fitness journeys, right? Okay, so you're going to create, like, for instance, with your Facebook pages and stuff, it becomes a place where people can talk, right? Because you want that community to be able to come and talk about it. And so thinking about what you're trying to achieve, I think, really helps with those guidelines of where you go and what direction. Because, as you know, starting a business, you could be pulled in 1,000 different directions, right?
You can, but you have to remember what your product is. Do you believe it? And are you adding value to your customers' lives? And at the end of the day, that's all it is. And hopefully you're happy doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best thing we could ask for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Wow. There's still
wow.
a lot
I
more
didn't
to
even
say.
realize how. I know. I was like, we're just getting started. I've got all my notes and all these other questions.
Yeah, but we'll just save it for another episode.
Yeah.
But that was good, Lisa. You got me to cry. I mean, I think if we can do that, that's a good episode.
Aww. Well, hopefully everybody at home has, you know, taken some tidbits away, some nuggets of gold in us discussing things and figuring out, you know, basically it's just a trial and error.
It's just trial and error. Don't be afraid. Take those chances. And now with the internet, you can pretty much do anything that you want. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And don't forget, be Sheroic!